to Beating a Dead Horse. As always, I am your host, Sean McKinda.
And I'm your host, Jackson Keller.
And we return with Feel Good September with a movie that actually makes us feel good and one that I do not think will lend itself to us to descend into racism and sexism and a whole big discussion of things that we are well underqualified for, because we're talking about something that half of us are incredibly qualified to talk about. It's an anime movie. It's Kiki's Delivery Service, a Miyazaki movie, and also I think our first G-rated movie we've ever done on this podcast.
No, that can't be. We've done a couple of animated movies. Is that true?
I think it is. I don't know what we would have done.
What about the original Lion King? Was that PG?
Did we do the original Lion King, or we did it as a comparison piece?
Yeah, we technically did that.
I don't know, but I feel like because it is a comparison piece, like it still technically shifts into that PG area, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I'd be surprised if it was G, considering how fucking traumatic that movie is. But
yeah, no, I mean, it is kind of horrifying. I have to imagine that it's PG for at least some horrifying imagery or something. But it might be G. I mean, the fucking MPAA is full of shit anyway. They don't know what the fuck they're talking about. So nothing means anything to them. Rules don't apply, and it's all made up.
Hot tip, if you're ever a person making some creative work, be it a film or whatever, and you have to get past some ratings board with censors, always make the initial draft you send, like if you're doing something that's like kind of edgy and pushing the boundaries, always make the draft you send way edgier than you intend for it to actually be. So when they say no, it'll look better in comparison. That's what Wolf of Wall Street did.
That's also what Family Guy does.
It works. It's a tactic. So that's our pro tip for today for all you directors out there.
Imitate Family Guy. Something I never ever thought I would ever say anywhere.
In this and perhaps no other way. This only once way.
Oh, yes. So we're talking about Kiki's Delivery Service, a wonderful film from 1989 by Hayao Miyazaki, the man who brought us Spirited Away, Howl's Moving Castle, Princess Mononoke, all those big anime movies that you and your parents both absolutely adore. Kiki's Delivery Service takes it in like just the lightest, most banal sort of mystical realism I have ever seen. Little girl going off to be a witch. She goes and does witch things. She becomes a delivery driver and flies around in the sky and delivers packages. And that's literally what Kiki's Delivery Service is. There are almost no stakes in the movie until the very end, and I say that without a shred of criticism in that. Like it is nearly a perfect movie. It is a wonderful little snack of joy in these dark, dire times. It made me remember what it was like to feel things, which is an emotion I haven't remembered in a long time.
I guess while we're in the dregs, did you feel weird? Because this is the first time this happened to me, which is why it was notable, and I don't know why it was this one. But like there was a scene where like somebody was on a bus, and like I was looking around, I'm like, nobody's wearing a mask on that bus. What are they doing? And I'm like, oh yeah, because society's still functioning back then.
When she ran out, like she ran out down a hill or something like that, past a dude with on a bike, and they like waved at each other. My first thought was like, oh god, they're so close together, move apart. And then I went, wait, that doesn't apply then. Yeah, it's our brains are irreparably damaged from this. Like this is going to be a weird lifetime.
Fun. We're doing fun times. Ignore that. Oh boy.
Shit. Oh god, we stared into the void by accident.
So Kiki's Delivery Service is a film by Hayao Miyazaki, which means that it's anime that you can admit in public that you enjoy without having to defend yourself. So that's always good. And you know, as far as Miyazaki movies go, obviously this is a well-known like classic film, but I feel like you know, this is just my pretty unsubstantiated observation, but I feel like this is a movie that doesn't get talked about as much when it comes to like at least the Western Miyazaki fandom, right? Like everyone's seen Spirited Away, everyone likes Mononoke, but this is one of the like those are kind of the biggest ones that people fondly remember, and for good reason. Those are excellent movies. Kiki's Delivery Service might be one of my favorite Miyazaki movies. It might be like top 3 precisely because it's boring. And I don't actually think it's boring. I'm being facetious. But yeah, it's especially in comparison to something like Spirited Away. They're both like coming of age stories about like, you know, early teen, like preteen, middle school age girls and, you know, finding their place in society and all that. Classic stuff. I feel like that people latch on to Spirited Away more because it's got more of the sauce. It's got more of the, you know, funny monster designs. It's got a really unique setting and a really unique house. And I love Spirited Away for all those things. But something about Kiki's Delivery Service taking place in a very, very mundane little world makes those elements speak to me more. And maybe that's just because I'm an old fart and I'm boring. But like I really found a lot of delight in this movie. I found a lot of delight in like the flying and like, you know, the talking cat. Whenever something fun or magical did happen, I like, you know, I'm all about that contrast. And so I spent the whole time in delirious joy. And, you know, for a movie that, like, objectively has almost no stakes, the movie's very good at building tension for, like, things that in the grand scheme of things are not that big of a deal, which I always think is super impressive. I think that it's an unappreciated art, building tension. I think that we think of tension as being only, like, one thing in a movie. Like, it's the, you know, Hitchcockian suspense of like violence or the threat of death or something like that. But like, you know, the concept of building tension, that's center to any like not drama as in like a movie like genre drama, like an Oscar drama, but just like dramatic storytelling in general. That even something as light and fanciful as Kiki's Delivery Service needs to give it that extra special sauce. And it's got the sauce. It's got the good stuff. I love this movie. Fuck.
I mean, you're entirely right, because tension, when you normally think about it, is a very life or death, very immediate type of thing that you're like, oh God, they're going to die, or oh God, the world's going to explode, or oh God, half of the world is going to vanish, or something like that. It's always representative of just like the most important thing in the world. But this movie does a really good job of putting you in the mind of this young 13-year-old girl, and what's the most important thing in the world to her right now? Well, it's finding a stuffed toy that fell out of her basket while she was flying. And so all of a sudden, you are feeling the tension that she's feeling because, oh, hey, look at that. This is the most important thing in the world to you right now. Nothing else matters. This girl needs to find this, because if she doesn't, it's consequences. And are they small and largely meaningless? Yeah, they'll resolve themselves one way or another, and the world will never know it happened, but she will, and we will. And there is something so pure about these small little conflicts that just so beautifully embody that feeling of childhood, and where everything in the world boils down to, did I do this right type of thing. And it's really, really good at putting you in the shoes of just being a kid and making you feel like a kid again. It is so good. It is like basically weaponized nostalgia in a lot of ways, because it will hit you right where it hurts, and you will go, oh yeah, I remember what that was. I remember what that was like. I'm so happy for her. And then you'll feel better about just everything, because good things still exist in the world in the form of Kiki's Delivery Service.
True. Woo! So what I'm hearing, Sean, is that anime saves the day again. Here we go, baby.
Jackson, do not put words in my mouth.
Reality keeps taking those L's.
Do not put words in my mouth. Do not misconstrue what I am saying. Anime should still be illegal, but I would smuggle in a copy of Kiki's Delivery Service.
No, all memes aside, yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think that one thing that's so great about this movie is that, like, Kiki herself is such a dumpling, and in a way that's not, like, cloying or obnoxious, like that. Her basic motivation about the movie is basically just to prove herself. Like, even beyond just like being a kid, like anyone really.
I was gonna, as you were saying, any kid, I was gonna be like, Jackson, I still need to prove myself. I need to prove myself all the time. I need validation. Validate me right now.
I mean, if it makes you feel any better. Seems to me like even the president of the United States needs a little bit of validation. Anyway, back to Kiki's Delivery Service and not things that are sad, like Donald Trump. Yeah. So, it does such a good job with her character, like making you empathize and like put yourself in her shoes, and you want to see her succeed, and like, you're happy when she's happy and you're sad when she's sad. And yeah, it's not like super. It's a fine line doing that with like a kids movie, but I think that what makes this movie great and what makes this character great is that it feels believable. She's not like too competent or too much of a fuck up. She's not the most specialist witch there ever was. Like, she's just going off into the world on her own. There's some drama. There's some elements where like she doubts herself and like brings herself into question, but they're very understated, very realistic portrayal of like depression and sadness, actually, which is, it kind of comes out of nowhere, but it works. It fucking works.
And it resolves happily. I can't stress that enough, that like this depression stuff, it gets, you move past it and it's happy. It's happy. Sorry, I know that I'm just like crooning and sounding weird and everything, but like, I genuinely, I am not being facetious when I say this movie actually made me feel happy, like genuinely happy for the first time in a long time. Like we don't watch movies like this enough. We don't play games like this enough. Like this is just a pure little snippet of childhood joy. And I cannot stress that enough, even in my goofy happy voices. And I'm sorry I did that. I am. But it's really the only way I can express just how it really made me feel, and how much, if you need that burst of joy in your life, you need to watch Kiki's Delivery Service.
Yeah, and I think that it works so well precisely because there is a little bit of that, just a dash, like a pinch of that real stuff in there. Just like it makes you feel sad and makes that high on the roller coaster when everything works out feel that much better. Because it feels real and genuine and not like cloying. There's the emotions here are all sincere. That's what we need. A little bit of sincerity in this world. Kiki's Delivery Service is gonna deliver some fucking sincerity to society. I tell you what, fucking watch it.
I do. You mentioned a comparison to Spirited Away earlier, and how Kiki's Delivery Service feels like it's a movie that is less talked about. And I think I have a theory as to why. And I'm calling this right now before we have even finished recording the episode, but it's going to lend itself to why I'm assuming this might end up being a shorter episode. And that is that Spirited Away wrestles with a lot of additional themes. There's a lot of things to talk about, even beyond just the hyper wild world and like everything going on with No Face and the bathhouse and the dragons and the flying and the pig people and everything else. There's so many metaphors and ideas and themes that you can take away from it. But Kiki's Delivery Service kind of sits on that fringe of the popular Miyazaki movies. It's the one that might not be the first one to come to people's minds when you say Miyazaki, but if you're like, and Kiki's Delivery Service, they'll all go like, oh yeah, I've seen that one, whatever. But it doesn't have as much, I think, staying power in the popular zeitgeist, just because it's very pure is really what it boils down to. Its idea is there's this girl, she wants to be a witch, she wants to be better, she wants to prove herself, she wants to grow up. We don't really have like some grand statement to make about society in it. There's not like a whole lot of other ideas or thematic through lines throughout the movie. The closest thing that we really get to that is Hayao Miyazaki inserts himself as someone who looks exactly like Griffin McElroy into the movie. But outside of that, there's not a lot to this movie, which is not, it sounds like, if you have listened to this podcast before, is something I would say to knock the movie, but I'm not. It is a boring, largely empty, just kind of complacent film, and it is so earnest in all three of those things that you cannot help but love it, because it knows what it is, it knows what it wants to be, and it aces the landing.
It's weirdly like tight is the word that I would use. Like every scene is very obviously purposeful. Even if like when we think of a tight story, we think of like, ooh, like this leads to this and all this wild stuff, like, you know, compounds on one another. And like that happens, but that happens, you know, when the stakes only ever get as high as like, oh, I can't fuck up my first job, you know, as a delivery gal, because, you know, I want to impress everyone and get started on the right foot. And like, you know, eventually the stakes creep a little higher into something more traditionally dramatic. But yeah, I mean, all that stuff does compound on itself. But I think you're right, and that like there's just maybe not that richness that something like Spirited Away has. Like, you know, in every single, you know, it's so dense, there's so much going on in every single shot. But ironically, whereas this movie kind of, it has its mission, it has its point, it has its theme, it has its feeling that it wants to convey. It does it with aplomb, and then it gets out. It's not quite as complex, nor is it as like, you know, fanciful, like just pure whimsy, like something like My Neighbor Totoro is. Because that's the opposite end of the spectrum, where Totoro was like, no themes, here's a giant mascot man to like thrill and delight you for an hour and a half.
No themes, head empty.
Yeah. And that's not me shitting on Totoro. Totoro is a great movie. Miyazaki knows his fucking whimsy. But yeah, this movie's kind of right in the middle of that line, which is maybe why I appreciate it so much, and that it's I like things with that focus. You know, you can give me some like big meaty stuff to chew on, but in some ways I feel like if I come to the podcast feeling like anything I say would be a waste of time because the movie is self-evident, then like, you know, then the movie's doing its job sometimes the movie's just stupid, but this is not one of those times.
Are you saying Hurricane Heist might not be that good?
But even with something stupid, we can at least clown on it. But with a movie like this, where it's like anyone who watches Kiki's Delivery Service will know why Kiki's Delivery Service is good, and if they don't, they're a heartless monster.
we don't want you here. Get out. What are you doing? Get out. I told you to leave this podcast right now. No, what I was going to say is I actually kind of weirdly have been thinking a lot about Tokyo Story in relation to Kiki's Delivery Service. Not so much in terms of themes. God, not so much in terms of themes. Jesus Christ. But more so just in kind of like that airy stylings of it. Like Tokyo Story is very much just kind of an open-ended movie. Like it's shot very open, lots of space for interpretations and ideas and putting yourself in those shoes. And I get a very similar vibe with Kiki's Delivery Service. Just I imagine a lot of it is just in how it is shot, because there's a lot of wide open shots and close-up shots of families, and there's a lot of overlap there. They're just like contextually very different movies, but they have kind of a similar feeling to them in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I think I agree to an extent. I think there is a similarity there. Because I was thinking about Tokyo Story a bit as well, especially like just in the pre-discussion. I was like, it's boring, and I like that.
Which, listen, we stand an intentionally boring movie on this podcast.
We love, we talk about Tokyo Story, we talk about 2001. We love fucking boring shit over here.
If you're unintentionally boring, though, we have. No, that is the duality of this podcast, honestly.
It really is. I've never thought about it that way, but you're absolutely right.
Because if you're unintentionally boring, we absolutely despise you. We have made the stark statement that the worst thing a movie can be is boring, and yet here we are espousing how great boring movies are.
And like, because I was thinking about this, because I think in some ways you could truly make the claim that like I could see Tokyo Story being too boring for some people.
Oh, like, God, yeah, easily.
Yeah. Like, I think that movie's great, and there's a lot going on. But, like, I could totally understand why someone wouldn't vibe with it. I think that the secret sauce, and one of the things that I'm appreciating so much about Kiki's Delivery Service, even in comparison to something like, the other Miyazaki movie we talked about on the show, The Wind Rises. The Wind Rises is also kind of boring in that Tokyo Story kind of way. But I think that Kiki's Delivery Service, although it is light, it is airy, it's low stakes. I think that how the movie like threads that needle of tension, still makes it more like you're watching a movie than just watching some people walk around and be sad for a while. But that's not a knock against Wind Rises or Tokyo Story. I love both of those movies a lot. But like it feels a little different to me here in a way that I'm still kind of trying to parse out.
I agree. Part of the reason I even brought up Tokyo Story is because I cannot stop thinking about Tokyo Story in relation to this movie, but I'm not fully sure why. Like, I feel like those are going to be two movies that are going to be inextricably linked in my mind for a while to come here. And it's going to be the type of thing that I will probably not ever fully understand, but I'm kind of trying to work through a little bit. And I do maintain that I think a lot of it has to do with how they're both kind of shot. I think part of it too is just how kind of, I mean, empty sounds mean because neither of the movies are empty, but they feel kind of empty, you know? Like nothing really happens in them, and that's what makes them great.
Yeah, they're mundane. Like, we've been using the word boring, but like if they were actually boring, like we wouldn't like them. Like it's that they're mundane. It's that, even though the movies are low stakes, there is something going on in this low stakes drama that is nonetheless compelling. And that's what we're here to try and figure out.
Yeah, to slowly but surely parse out our own emotions on this podcast. That's how it works. All right. I feel like we should call a spoiler tag somewhere on here, although I don't really even know how much spoiler stuff we're gonna get into with this one. It's gonna be, I feel like, a fairly light episode on the other side of this spoiler warning, but you know what? Let's just slap down a spoiler warning, because I don't know what we're gonna talk. I know what I'm gonna talk about. I'm gonna talk about the best himbo in the world in a second here. But that's not really a spoiler, but it might segue into spoilers, so we'll see. So if you're enjoying the podcast, please leave us a review on iTunes, tell your friends, follow us on Twitter at BADHcast, support us on Patreon, patreon.com/BADHcast. Next week, we're going to be talking about Speed Racer, not the anime, the Wachowski film from like 2008. I actually just watched Speed Racer like a month ago, and I loved it so much. I'm like, I need to find a place to talk about this. I have a wild theory that I can't imagine a single film blog would ever be interested in me having write about it. But I have a podcast, and I can make Jackson listen to my insane theories on the podcast. So stay tuned for Speed Racer.
Delightfully devilish Seymour.
Spoilers?
Spoiler time. Although really, like, we've already given the biggest spoiler away is that Kiki gets sad at one point.
I mean, that is true. I mean, that is the third act twist, essentially.
So talk about your himbo.
Okay, yeah. This is gonna be light and simple, but I just the joy that I got from Mr. Baker Man was shocking. It was absolutely shocking when Osomo, I believe is her name, right?
Yes.
The baker lady comes out and she's pregnant, and then this big burly dude who just looks like the nicest fucking man in the world, just fucking crunk, empty head, respect people, just
anime crunk,
just anime crunk through and through, peak himbo. I'm like, I hope to God that he is her husband because she deserves something like that. Look at that man. And I was so thrilled that I was not disappointed by this man at any point throughout the movie. He has literally a single line in the movie and yet is so wonderfully characterized just through his interactions with Gigi the cat, with his work around the world, how he clearly cares about his wife, about everyone going on in there. He's the best. I love him so much. And he's just such a small character in this movie, but he is so endemic of everything else in the movie because even there's just so much love in this. I don't even know if he's stupid, but I'm gonna keep calling him a himbo because in my mind he is a himbo. He's great, and there's so much love in just this small little himbo man that it shows how much love goes into literally everything else in this film, and he's great.
No, I think he's a good example of, like, although we can say that, like, although Spirited Away may have like richer like symbolism and more like density of theme, right? Like it's not like this movie lacks, you know, the fine details that make a Ghibli movie that, like, you know, the small things that exist solely to thrill and delight you. Like how, you know, big tough looking like himbo man, like Gigi like looks at him and he thinks that, like, you know, he's gonna be scary, like, oh, I don't like cats, I'm a grumpy, you know, big old baker man, and they just like he just like winks at him and like does some weird stuff for the cat.
My heart melted. Honest to God, I was so happy that like it subverted my expectations. I thought so too. I thought the cat they were gonna like each other, and then they did, and I was just happy. What a concept! Oh my God.
Remember happiness. I do
yes.
now.
I was gonna say, I do, because of Kiki's delivery service. Oh my God, do I remember happiness. The dog melted my heart. The dog was so good. I went down and I started petting Bane and playing with Bane. He's like, oh, you're petting me. Yay, we're gonna play now. And I'm like, okay, we'll play. That's fine. I just am so happy. I understand joy. I remember.
Like, I mean, the dog is another good example of, like, there's a lot of, like, weird subversion of expectations when it comes to Gigi, like, come to think about it, because it's a good comedy bit that, like, we dropped the cat toy, which, considering that I have, like, some fucked up complex about stuffed animals, when that happened, I was screaming. I was like, no, you can't get a stuffed animal, like, lost in the forest, and so nothing, like...
Toy Story ruined a generation.
It really did. So when Artist Lady like repairs the cat toy, I'm just like, oh, they're so good in this world. it didn't even matter that the little kid didn't care. You know, that dog cared. And Kiki, that dog became friends with Gigi. He was in on the plan. He was just the sweetest big ol' hound dog. And Kiki brought him that fucking toy, and they did the handoff, and no one was the wiser. And, you know, Kiki got to make her first successful delivery despite goofing up and getting pecked at by some mean fucking birds. Fuck birds.
I like the birds anyway. I thought they were cute. They were mean, but they were cute. I like birds.
That was like my worst nightmare, is losing a stuffed animal to a horde of angry birds. Like I'll never be okay again.
Jackson has had a wonderful day watching this movie, talking about how much joy it brings him, and he's gonna go to sleep tonight and just have the worst fucking nightmare of his life.
And like just so many of the little side characters, like even the birds, you know, despite my misgivings, artist lady makes friends with the birds, and Kiki apologizes, and the birds are like, "Oh, we're suspicious of you, but you know, I guess if she says you're cool," and that's delightful, and that's great.
Delight across the board. All of it. I mean, even the sad stuff is delightful. Like the old lady and her granddaughter and the cake. It hit home. Like the grandma makes this cake to give to her granddaughter, and the granddaughter's like, ugh, herring and pumpkin pie thing. And first of all, gross. I'm with you on that. That sounds absolutely awful. But A, I have never eaten fish, and B, I'm not a pie person to begin with. So my opinion, just throw it out the window right off the bat. But like the granddaughter's like, oh fuck grandma, she does this. My heart still melted. Maybe maybe that's the Tokyo Story connection.
I as you were saying that, I was like,
Maybe that's it. Maybe we did it. Maybe we found it. But I mean, my heart melted there, but the grandma still made a friend with Kiki, and that was great. And like, it was unfortunate watching some of Kiki's innocence break slowly through the course of her delivery days. But she gained it back. Because, you know, innocence, you never fully lose it. You can't go home. Gigi doesn't talk again at the end, but you know, you get some of it back. You can still be a kid. You can still have fun. I have a lot of emotions about this movie, and I clearly did not sort them out before we started recording, and I am very sorry about that.
No, I'm here for it. I'm fucking here for it. Like this is delightful. This is like revelations. I'm loving it. But no, in all seriousness, I think that like when it comes to the depression stuff, I think that like we were saying in the pre-spoilers, like we do need a little bit of that realness to like make the whimsy hit all the stronger. If it's all whimsy all the time, it's like eating. Well, I was about to say this, but this is a thing I know Sean actually does. It's like shotgunning a pack of Fun Dip.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know anyone who would do that for a week straight and then poop just liquid.
You know, I was about to say, it's like shotgunning a pack of Fun Dip, but like, you know, you eat it and there's like a nice sugar rush and you feel nice for a bit, but then you forget about it. But then I realized who I was talking to, so that analogy completely fell apart.
I'm not saying I'm the person in that example, but the week after Valentine's Day is dangerous for me because Fun Dip is always on sale. And I have a weakness.
I'll tell you what. I'll do another example. It's like squirting a bottle of maple syrup into your mouth directly.
Oh, okay. See that one got me. That's gross.
like sure, it'd probably taste good for a little bit, but then you're just all sticky and like, okay, this is too much. You need that nice fluffy pancake. You need the holes. You need the dips and the waffles to get that syrup and, you know, feel truly good and have a complete experience. And I don't even remember what the fuck I was talking about. I had a real point to make. But
we had to talk about my bad poopy in college.
uh-oh.
Nope.
Stinky.
No. I am so sorry for this episode, y'all. I am so sorry.
We're having a delightful time. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be great.
This one's for us. This one's for us.
But with the sadness, and it feels very real in a way that's honestly pretty surprising for like a G-rated kids movie, and that like it is like you slowly watch her confidence break, and that confidence starts to seep into her performance. Like she can't fly, and like the fact that she can't fly only makes her doubt herself more, and there's like a spiral. But then she like has some, and this is the other thing I kind of wanted to talk about that like I don't have a grand thesis on, partially because I'm not a woman, and also partially just because I don't have all the facts. I'm going to be making some grand statements that I know are generalizations, but bear with me here. But one thing that's really nice about this movie is just like the amount of like, you know, I don't want to use the meme like strong women because that's such like a meme word, but like parental like you know, kind, like, you know, role models for Kiki and, you know, ostensibly like whatever viewer. And that, especially with anime, there is, you know, it's too much of a generalization. Anime is an entire medium. It's not a genre. So there's lots of different kinds of stories and lots of different kind of contexts. But especially with anime as of late, there is a bigger focus on going hyper niche to make the big like neat bucks, the whale bucks, to cater specifically to these hyper specific like otaku interests. And
isn't that why like all those absolutely wild light novel titles have been coming out? Like,
yes,
I fell down a hole and died, and I got turned into an orangutan and sent to an alternative dimension where I fell in love with my high school crush.
No, precisely. Like light novels are a big part of this, and that like they are so niche and hyper specific, just that the way that anime is marketed and sold, there's more of a focus on pushing merch than anything else. And of course, the people who buy merch, the people who buy Blu-rays, are the hyper fans, are the otaku. So more and more shows are made to cater to those interests. So that is not to say that anime in general does not have like, you know, coming of age stories like centered on women, written by women in a lot of cases. But and again, this is where like the generalizations sort of come in. I have a sneaking suspicion that even as of recently, a lot of the shows that like star girls and like are ostensibly sort of about like growing up and like being a teenage girl, I suspect that a lot of those shows are more like otaku waifu bait for guys than any sort of like sincere attempt to like tell a coming of age story from like a feminine perspective. And you know, I'm not going to claim that like, you know, Kiki's Delivery Service gets everything right necessarily. I can't claim that. I didn't notice anything that like made my skin crawl, but like I'm sure some people feel differently. I'm sure other people think that, yeah, this does capture the experience of being a teenage girl. Opinions, whatever. But what I think is notable is that, and was notable across all of Miyazaki's work, and I think this is why Spirited Away is a good point of comparison, because it's also really good about this, and that like it is a movie, you know, written by a guy that takes like, you know, the pretty mundane, like more realistic issues that girls face growing up seriously. Some things like, you know, body image issues, like, oh, am I, you know, pretty enough? Am I productive enough? Like that is all, there is some uniquely gendered stuff in there that I think that the movie handles in a way overall that is not like belittling or demeaning, like, oh, these are stupid girl problems. It always takes Kiki seriously, and it always shows that like the women that she respects and like looks up to, it shows why that she does that. And so there's something really sincere and heartfelt about that to me, especially in a medium like anime, which of course, like its problems with women are well documented, but even more generally when it comes to coming of age stuff, again, not to say anime is a broad medium, not to say that there aren't stories in general that are more like mundane coming of age stories, but for stuff that's aimed at a younger audience, it does tend to be more fantastical, more like shonen. Even in stuff that isn't specifically like a shonen manga, there's usually some sort of like combat element, or the coming of age element is like explicitly romantic when it's not combat. So it's nice to see a movie that is about like self-actualization, like from a feminine perspective. And although like the magic powers and like, a little bit of like the romance and finding yourself, that all plays into it, but that's not the story. The story is about this girl like figuring out who she is, and like it never strays from that, and her interactions with the people in her life are what make that story. And that just something about that really gets to me.
I don't have much to add on that one, other than, I mean, obviously this whole movie really gets to me. But I'm not the anime boy on this podcast. I am the person who Jackson drags along through anime.
We got quite the month coming up when it comes to anime.
God, we inadvertently made this whole month, with the exception being Little Shops of Horror, anime or anime adjacent. So stay tuned, because a long-time fan favorite episode series is coming back in this month, just to slowly hint more and more at what we've got cooking the following week. But I don't really have anything else to add that's super pertinent to Kiki, actually, other than, oh my God, it made me so happy.
It's so good. It's so real, and not real in that way that you usually think of real that's like staring to the void. It's real as in like life can be happy sometimes,
Yeah. And honest to God, if nothing else even comes close to this movie this month, this is what we wanted fucking like feel good September to be. Kiki's Delivery Service is absolutely it. And
yes, 100%. Yeah, I was thinking about that too, and that like it's light, but it's not like empty. Like it's still like really great, but it doesn't make me want to die.
I'm hoping that Speed Racer is not going to have that same airiness to it, unfortunately, but I'm hoping you have fun with it next week. It is, if nothing else, going to be just a visual feast. Just so good. I'm so excited.
I'm excited. I've heard people low key sing the praises of Speed Racer for quite some time now, so I've been like vaguely interested, but not enough to like seek it out until Sean has nudged me in this direction. So here we go.
It is genuinely incredible, and like the Wachowskis are pretty much the only people I could ever see do this film justice. Honestly, in hindsight, they are the wacky folks that put out Jupiter Ascending. So, oh God, I'm really excited for it though. For now, though, we good with Kiki?
I think we're good with Kiki.
Please do yourself a favor and watch Kiki's Delivery Service. Just trust us. Watch Kiki's Delivery Service. Even if you're not an anime fan, you will not regret it. It will make you happy. If you're watching it on HBO, there's even an English version if you don't want to read the subtitles for it. I have no idea how the dub is. I watched the sub like a good degenerate would.
Hell yeah. I think that usually Ghibli dubs are pretty well respected. I also watch the sub because, I'm, oh God. But
if I'm degenerate, my friends, this man is nothing more than toxic waste.
Pure sludge, the Toxic Avenger, that old fucking like trauma film. But Ghibli dubs are usually well regarded. I was doing like a little bit of reading. Apparently there's some controversy about whether or not the dub is any good on Kiki, but like it's Disney does the Ghibli dubs, so like there's usually like actual actors and stuff. They're not like your typical schlock, like pumped out in a factory dub.
John Krasinski is in The Wind Rises, and it's the weirdest fucking thing in the world.
Yeah, so I mean, you're probably safe with the dub. I'm a filthy weeaboo purist. I of course watch the sub and recommend that you do the same. Reading's good for your eyes.
But either one, watch this movie. It will fill you with joy. I'm Sean McKinda. You can find me on Twitter at Sean_McKinda. I have been just shit posting the past few weeks, just the weeks away. Just nothing but garbage has been spewed upon my Twitter account. So I guess if you want some hot trash piped directly into your eyeballs, that's a good way to do it.
And I'm Jackson Keller. I'm off Twitter again. So I'm just Jackson Keller for now.
If you want to follow us on Twitter, that's at BADH_cast. It just keeps you up to date with stuff that's going on. I tweet out next episodes on Fridays just because you might not listen to this episode ahead of time. If you want to support the podcast, the best place to do that is on patreon.com/BADHcast. At only $1 a month, it gets you access to our Discord where you can come yell at us directly. So if you're really upset that I interrupted this really nice, wholesome episode to talk about the time that I ate nothing but Fund It for a week, that's the best place to yell at me. $5 a month gets you access to our Discord as well as a backlog of absolutely stellar bonus episodes. Please go check those out. $10 a month gets you access to our backlog of bonus episodes, our Discord, as well as the ability to request bonus episodes. And we still need a bonus episode for this month. So if you have a suggestion of a movie that just makes you feel good or anything else, we'll take any suggestions, honestly. But, you know, feel good is a preference right now, so please give that to us. It also gets a little something.
Thank you so much, Julia, Travis, Pat, Mom, Summer. Go team, Speed Racer.
Sure. Also, thanks to Lords of the Highway for the use of our theme song. It is Suicide, alternate take off the album High Octane, Low Expectations. They're a wonderful band. You should go check them out however you can. Stream them, buy their music, whatever you gotta do. Just give them your support. Give all artists your support right now. They really desperately need it. Also, thanks to 25 Years Later site.com. There's a little button of us in the corner, but you should definitely go check out and read some of the articles over there. There's some really smart people doing some really, really smart writing. As I said, next week we're going to be talking about Speed Racer, and I am so fucking excited. I love this movie quite a bit. So stick around for that.
It's Speed Racer. Speed Racer.
Bye?
It was a meme. It was a reference. It was the Ridge Racer meme from the Sony E3 conference in 2006. I'm doing a bit.
Bye.
Don't you go into the ground. Don't you go